I'm gonna go right straight. Yes, sweetie. I'm gonna go right straight to the topic because we had a little delay. So I'm gonna ask all of you to mute your phones or your laptops so that we can eliminate the background noise. And well, just like as a form of review, remember that last time we were watching the population pyramids, okay? And let me just show you the I'm going to share my screen so that I can explain again the homework that you have so that you don't have any more doubts because some people have been asking me. So here is your platform, your Moodle, and in the third partial, I have already uploaded the first class about population pyramids, and then this is the homework. Okay, it asks you to do an intervention. It's a forum so that I can grade it in an easier way. And what I'm asking you to do is I assign you a country. For example, Stephanie Michelle González Preciado, she has the privilege to look for the Peruvian population pyramid. And so I'm gonna go to this web page, okay? And here it is. And I'm going to look for the country, whatever it is, and then I'm going to go to people. I'm going to go to the population pyramid. That one's the Mexico one, but I'm just doing this very quickly so that you can understand. And from the observation of the Peruvian pyramid and how it is shaped, I am going to answer these three questions, okay? So number one would be, tell me the three observations at analyzing your pyramid. Like, for example, I can say that the one observation may be that the generation from this age to this age is the biggest one, something as simple as that, okay? Just an observation. Then in number two, it says, do you believe that this population pyramid is healthy or unhealthy? As we mentioned, only the ones that are in a triangle form are healthy, economically healthy, okay? We're leaving environmental issues aside. We know that we generate CO2 and blah, 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 but just economically wise, the pyramid must be at least replacing the actual population, okay, for being healthy, for being considered healthy. And number three, mention an economic effect that you infer, that you suppose, that you conclude from looking at your pyramid, okay? For example, the retirement benefits, like if the chunk of people that is going on to the ages of 60-somethings is bigger than the ones that remain in the labor market, then we're gonna have a crash in the system. We're gonna have a difficulty meeting ends for the retirement and the benefits for senior citizens, the health system, the educational system, etc. And each of you has a different country, okay, so that we can give it a little variety, okay? And well, let's begin. I also posted this image so that you can start copying and reproducing it in your notebook. One of the activities is just very simple. I'm going to ask you at the end, towards the end of this partial, to upload your notes, the ones that you took from the whole semester. No, not the whole semester, the whole partial. Okay? So we're going to explain this in a little while, and let's begin. Okay, let me change to the hard to comparative. All right, so listo. Okay, so we're still in the macroeconomics. This is in Spanish. I have my little letrerito in English. Macroeconomics. Well, you understand, right? Oh, here it is. Macroeconomics. Okay, so first of all, we're going to work a lot with the GDP. We have already started watching the statistics, but now let's slow down and make a zoom at the definition of GDP. Okay, so GDP is namely the dollar value of all final goods and services. Now, the key word here is final, okay? We're gonna see that it doesn't include this measure, this indicator doesn't include every single thing that we produce here in Mexico. Now, remember, the wealth of a nation is determined by the production within the borders of that territory. Okay, so GDP stands for Gross Domestic Product, in Spanish, Producto Interno Bruto. And that's the main measure by which we're going to determine the health, the prosperity, the situation, or the evaluation of any given country, okay? It's all that we have. It's the most accurate thing of all that we have, all right? So it's the dollar value, the US dollar value of all final goods and services. It's not only material, okay? We're also counting intangible goods. We're also counting intangible goods. For example, a car wash. When you go to a car wash, you take your car and it's a material thing and they provide you a service. They wash your car, but you don't take the little guy with you. Okay? You don't buy the guy so that he can wash your car all the time. Or you don't buy the shampoo, or you pay for it because they're giving you a service, and in that way you are attaining something, you're accomplishing something, but it's not like you're keeping the things. Okay, it's used and it's there. You don't take anything tangible, anything material. That's why it's goods and services, all right? Produced within a country in 1 year. All right, so we add up all that. Now, very, very important. What does GDP does not include? What does it not include? We do not count intermediate goods. That is, if I am counting the production of cell phones, I am not counting the chip, the pieces, the circuits, the what includes, because that would be counting twice something. I'm only counting the final good. All right. And in that sense, if I have an economy that is based on the production of very sophisticated goods, technological sophisticated goods, then obviously my GDP is bigger than some economy that, even though it has by quantity far larger, more production, for example, in apples, since it's not a processed good, then maybe even though I have more units of something that is more important because it's food, at the end my GDP is not going to be so great, because the difference between a technological sophisticated good is that it's far bigger than the other one. Okay, already? So it doesn't count intermediate goods, that's clear. It doesn't count non-production transactions. Non-production transactions. It doesn't count anything that is like, how can I say that? Yeah, like it's kind of like the same principles as intermediate goods. Non-production goods is everything that you do so that the market is there. Like, for example, the selling capacity, like all the selling people that are trying to sell something, I'm not counting that effort. I'm counting the goods and the services, but I'm not counting what got me to sell something. Okay, that's what that is. And finally, I do not count in the GDP non-market transactions. Everything that is in the black market is off the table. It's not included in the GDP. Obviously, drug trafficking, stealing, the organ market, like if you want to buy a kidney or a cornea, that's not going to count. That's not going to be included here. Everything that the mafia does or the drug cartels, that is not included there. It's not considered a business. It's considered a black market activity. Okay. Ready? Okay. So when we were looking at the statistics for Mexico, okay, we were, let me share my screen. Okay, now you can see the screen. And after examining all the population pyramid things, okay, we went to the economic one, the economy, and we were looking at this. Okay, we have a very humongous GDP. Yes? Is somebody asking something? Hello? I heard a voice. I don't know what's going on. Okay. When we were talking about GDP, okay, we were saying that Mexico is the 11th biggest economy in the whole world as of 2017. We would need to look at the data that was thrown after 2019, after 1 year that AMLO is there. Now, teaching this class previously, one of the students asked me if we have already some statistical information about the government or the well-doing or the wrongdoings, economically speaking, for Andrés Manuel López Obrador. Well, we still don't have enough data because remember that we have a lag effect. It's going to be delayed. So probably in 2021, we're going to be able to talk about the statistics during this year because for statistics, we can only see projections or we can only examine the past. And the past can only be examined when all the information has been gathered already. For gathering the information, we need to give it some time, okay? So we were talking about last week, that we have this very important indicator, the GDP, and then we were calculating the GDP per capita. The GDP per capita and the GDP real growth rate is very important, okay? Because for economic purposes, the macroeconomics wants to attain 3 goals. And one of these goals is precisely to make or to maintain a real economic growth. So it is pretty important that when we go to these statistics, the GDP real growth rate, we have a positive number. Now, as you can observe, this history of the statistics, in 2015, we have 3.3, 2016, 2.9, decreased, okay, with Peña Nieto it decreased, and the growth decreased a little bit more in 2017. Being things what they are, we know that the economy is cyclical. So those things aside, let's look for a 2020 GDP real growth rate. Let's see if there exists some approximation of the growth right now to see if it's compared to this, where we were at 2%, okay, we're decreasing, and that's never good. And let's see what this International Monetary Fund, which is one of the organisms dependent on the United Nations, tells us for our dear Mexico. And it's Santa Madre del Huerto. 6.6. negative. (2020). And here's our little graph. As you can see, as we said, economies are cyclical. We have with Cedillo a minus 6.3 in these years. That was Jose Lopez Portillo. That's 94 Ernesto Cedillo. That's 2010 Enrique Peña Nieto. No, Felipe Calderón. And Andrés Manuel López Obrador. So we're in trouble, basically. And well, we wanna have this growing, and it's not growing. And the other very important indicator that has to do with GDP is the GDP per capita. The GDP per capita is an average, is the GDP divided by the total number of population, okay? And it's 19,900 US dollars. Let's look for GDP per capita this year. And we're gonna observe, maybe it's not updated. Growth rate, annual rates, GDP per capita. And this is 2018, we have gone down, 18,101. You see where I'm getting that information from? And if we compare it to the statistics of the CIA, well, we're decreasing that average too. This average is obviously not real for all the reasons that we talked about last time, and we are number 90 in the ranking, although we are number 11th in the GDP size, in the ranking of the world. We are number 90 if we convert it to GDP per capita, okay? So that cannot be good. That can never be good. Okay, that can never be good. And so right now, having said what is the definition of GDP, having seen the application, having seen what is not included in GDP, we can say that we have three major economic goals. Okay, we study macroeconomics for two functions, remember? For measuring the health of the economy, to determine if it's a healthy or an unhealthy economy based on a statistical data and mathematical models, and to guide the decisions of a government in what pertains to a country. Now, there are three major things that we must pursue in terms of macroeconomics. Number one, to promote economic growth, and that's always that percentage GDP growth rate that we looked at. Number two, to limit unemployment. Is very related that the more people that are in the labor market, the higher the GDP, because we cannot count the informal economy, as we just mentioned. And number three, keep prices stable. This is aiming for a zero inflation or a very low inflation. Okay, this is aiming for a very low inflation, so we have to limit inflation, we have to limit unemployment or promote employment, and promote economic growth. In the long run, obviously this is not going to be achieved if we keep on giving money away, although it sounds awful because we're going through times that require a lot of solidarity measures on the behalf of the government, but that's not the answer. Remember what happens in Venezuela. Maduro and these Chavez start giving away benefits that we cannot sustain. There are only two sources for money that a government has, which is taxing and loaning. If you are not producing the money, saying in the petroleum business, you need to tax people, and that's taking a power parity away, purchasing power parity away from your citizens. Or the third one, which is loaning money, asking for loans. And that can never be good, especially for an economy like Mexico that has a humongous public debt. Is 1, 2, 3. Already. So if you haven't finished, you can take a picture of the screen, a screenshot, and we can keep on going. Now, as you can already be thinking, we cannot measure an economy standard just by looking at some numbers. We need to grasp some other information, some experiential information. So there is something pretty simple that it doesn't tell you everything, but it gives you like a little grasp of how economies are doing. And that's called the Big Mac standard. Okay, if you look for the Big Mac standard, you're gonna find many things. It is an index, okay, it's an index, and we can say that we can measure how much does a Big Mac cost in the world. Okay, that's kind of like that. Is if you want to decide or you want to know or have an insight or how much or how expensive or how cheap a country is for going on an exchange or going on something like a trip or to live, to move there, you can use the Big Mac standard or the Big Mac index. And that gives you like the country in which a Big Mac, the same Big Mac costs you the most is in Switzerland. And one of the countries where it costs you very cheap is Ukraine. Doesn't mean that the quality of life is already given by this standard. It's one of the measurements, okay? Now, another way to looking at the Big Mac standard is how long do you need to work to buy a Big Mac? And that's talking to you about purchasing power parity. Even though money is measured in numbers, like you can say 1,000, it sounds like it's a lot of money. 1 million sounds like it's a lot of money. But if you go to Colombia, for example, where they have Colombian pesos, and something costs very expensive, okay, let's say we want to buy a trip in Mexican pesos, okay, there is nothing being sold here. Let's go to Medellin. Okay, let's say we want to go on the 23rd, we want to return on the 11th, and we're looking for one person. Oh, they haven't opened. They haven't opened frontiers yet. Look, if I want to buy one queso fresco, in euros it's 266. In pesos colombianos, we're talking about 11,500. So it may sound like a lot of money. Una docena de huevos, 118 euros. Like if you go to a supermarket in Spain, okay, you can buy a dozen of eggs in 118 euros. But if you want to buy a dozen of eggs in Colombia, you have to pay 5,100. That sounds like a lot of money. 3,100. Okay, it sounds like a lot of money because we're not even used to it, since Mexican pesos are very different in a conversion rate comparing to the US dollar or to the euro. It's very different. So we have to come up with some measure for measuring purchasing power parity. The purchasing power parity is kind of like what they did for dummies, like what they did with the Big Mac index. It's a very easy way to show us that calculating the purchasing power parity is not so easy, okay? For example, here the Big Mac index is how many burgers you can get for $50. In India, for $50, exchanging the currency, you can buy 30. In Ukraine, Hong Kong, 23. In Malaysia, 21. In China, South Africa, blah, 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 20. In Russia, Sri Lanka, Poland, and Hungary, 19, 18, 16. Latvia, the Czech Republic, Turkey, and blah, blah, blah. This is how many burgers can I buy with $50. Obviously, some of the money is more, is worth more, or it gives you more out of that money. That's why so many American seniors and Canadian seniors are here in Ajijic or in Chapala spending their pension, because what they can buy here with the same amount of money is far more than what can they buy back in their original countries. They have a better quality of life exchanging the currency and spending it here than over there. And another way to look at it is how long do you need to work to buy the Big Mac? Okay, these are like the 3 applications of the Big Mac standard. Just to name one product that is everywhere. You can look for Coca-Cola standard too, okay? It's like just a way so that we can explain purchasing power parity. It's not only conversion of money. It's not only to look at the minimum salary. It implies much more. It's how much you can buy and how much do you need to work to attain the same good or the same quality of life. That's why it's a very complex system, to determine the wealth of a person, of a nation, of the health of the economy, okay? For example, this Big Mac index, as it says here, is a price comparison of the McDonald's sandwich Big Mac in different countries, as we just observed. The index was invented by this magazine in 1986 as a guide to whether currencies are at their correct level, and correct inside quote symbols, because there is no correct thing. It's just the real thing. It's what it is. This economic indicator is based on the theory of purchasing power parity, which what we're seeing right now, we're explaining, according to which identical products after the conversion exchange rate should cost the same in different countries. It costs the same, like we can say that $1 is equal to 21 pesos. However, if you look at real costs, that is not only the material things, you know that it doesn't cost the same, okay? 21 pesos is not always the same. It cannot always get you the same as $1. For example, this shows how many minutes of minimum wage work one can earn the Big Mac burger. Example, a man with the minimum wage has to work nearly 6 hours in India or Afghanistan to buy one hamburger. In Portugal, it turns to 1 hour. In Australia, 18 minutes. Okay? That's the difference. That's the difference. In Luxembourg is the absolute European winner with the minimum wage of 1,923 euros per month. One has to work 20 minutes to buy a sandwich. And that makes us think, how much do you need to work for earning a Big Mac? And that's what this is explaining, this little graph. In Canada, 30 minutes, 35 minutes in United States, in Mexico, 282, in Spain, 48 minutes, in Portugal, 66, in United Kingdom, 23, in Poland, blah, 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 okay? Obviously, we don't need to memorize the numbers or the minutes or anything, but this is only to show you that it is a very complex system, this money currency exchange rate, and the cost, because it's not the same what it costs to make a Big Mac in France and what it costs to make a Big Mac in United States, or what costs to make a Big Mac in Mexico. Usually things that are food or other type of goods and services in some countries are cheaper. but that doesn't necessarily mean that the end good is cheaper. Do you see what I mean? It's very, very complicated, and it includes many factors. One thing is the currency exchange rate. That's one variable. Another variable is the cost of the same hamburger in different countries, where bread costs different. And we're talking about the same national currency. We're not even changing currencies, because we're not making hamburgers with American meat. We're making it with Mexican meat, I hope, and etc., etc. So we have the ingredients or the inputs difference of prices. We have the currency exchange rate, and we have the social conditions and economic conditions, which include the minimum salary. These are only the comparison chart of 20 countries and how much time they have to work in order to have the same good. The same thing, as I said before, we can do it with a Coke or we can do it with something else. Some people have suggested that this is not valid because Big Mac may be in the basic basket of United States, but it's probably not basic here in Mexico. So we would have to find an analogy or a replacement good. For example, here we can replace a Big Mac with 3 tacos, 3 tortillas, 3 pieces of meat, 3 portions of tacos. Maybe we can compare it to that. But although we change currency and we change the good and we try to find a very uniform good that can be examined in every country, still we have a lot of differences. Okay, the working system, the labor market, the interest rates, depending on how they receive the money, etc., etc., etc. We're even worse off than Brazil. And United Kingdom is far better than Spain and than Portugal. It's kind of like the same than France. So you see what I'm saying? It's not very easy to determine the wealth or the health of a country because numbers are only numbers. So we have to get into the scenario and we have to get to the real life and applications of this money to see what I can buy. This winter that I was in Peru, I noticed that housing in Peru is very, very cheap compared to Mexico. It's much cheaper, maybe 3/4 of what you pay for the same house here over there. And economies, macroeconomically, they're very different. You're doing so much better here in Mexico than Peruvian economy. However, when you go to the microeconomic level, maybe if you compare a person from an upper middle class over there and a person from an upper middle class over here, maybe they're the same. Although macroeconomically, the indicators may suppose something different, okay? Things are more expensive over there. What I noticed is that what I could buy here with 100 pesos, I couldn't buy there with whatever was the equivalent to 100 pesos. Things are a little bit more expensive over there in what comes to food, but not in housing. So it's a very complex analysis when you want to move to another country or you want to compare the styles of living or the quality of living of 2 different countries. Okay, I'm gonna upload this image too because I believe it's very, very interesting. I think this one says a little bit more than the other one, the one that compares only how many Big Macs you can buy with $50, because that's like a basic conversion only based on the currency exchange rate. And I think this one is richer. This one has more impact, visual impact, and also it tells you more about the styles of living anywhere. All right. So do you have any questions, guys? Today we have focused on GDP. We have mentioned GDP, the definition, what is not included in GDP, some applications. how we measure the GDP per capita. That's always the average, the total GDP of a nation divided by the population that is within a territory or border. And then we have the GDP purchasing power parity, which is another measure. Okay, the thing that you can buy, which depends on many other factors rather than only some statistics. Okay, do you have any questions for me? Everything clear about the GDP? You're gonna speak now. All clear? Already then. Do you have any other class right now at 12? Okay. No? Okay. So, I don't think we have otra clase at 12:45. Okay. So, according to my schedule, we see each other again on Thursday at 11. Okay? Thursday at 11, we have class. And by Wednesday 13, you have the activity of the population pyramid due. Already? Already then. Esta clase se está quedando grabada en YouTube Live para que le digan a Edgar y a las otras como 7 personas que no están. ¿Sale? Okay, guys. Hola. Bye. Love you too. Miss you. You too, sweetie. Bye-bye. Be good. Love you. Bye-bye. Listo.